Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I am coming to you with a very special solo episode. This is a really, really super important topic that I needed to bring to you guys like as soon as possible. I'm going to get into the details of why this is kind of an emergency podcast. The title of this episode is Over Negotiation: How to Botch a Job Offer. And it's important. So definitely be prepared to take notes. If you're driving or if you're in the gym, you may want to listen to this another time and get out a notebook because this is going to be really important stuff that you don't want to miss because you don't want to botch your next job offer. Before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Fierce Pharma Week, which is an amazing conference coming up September 8th. It's going to be here before you know it. It's September 8th through the 11th in Philadelphia. This used to be Mass East. It is still a medical affairs conference, but it's actually a premier event that brings together cross-functional teams, including pharma marketing, PR and communications, medical affairs, of course, and then business development and licensing, all under one umbrella. So it's at the convention center, so it's a bigger conference. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. If you use the code MSLTALK, MSL Talk, no space, at registration, you get 25% off. So go to Fierce Pharma Week. Just go to Google and type in Fierce Pharma Week. You'll see it'll come up. Go to register, put in that MSL Talk code. You'll get 25% off. So let me share a story with you guys. As you know, my job is I'm a recruiter by day. I'm not just a podcaster. I am an MSL, Medical Affairs Executive Search recruiter. Had somebody come to us recently that awesome. Let's say the guy's name is John for argument's sake. Awesome dude. John's great. Really was excited about this opportunity for an MSL position with one of our clients. Goes through the entire interview process, loves it. Everything's great. Interviewed great. Awesome presentation. Company, let's fast forward. Company makes him an offer, and it's like a significant offer. The base salary, just to kind of give you guys some context, is one of the highest base salaries that we've ever gotten for an MSL in 20 years. That's how high the salary was. Okay. So turns out that he declined the job. When I tell you, absolutely wanted everything about this, he loved the opportunity, loved the company. The salary was everything that he could have possibly wanted. But what happened was, towards right after he got the offer, he told us, "This is great. I plan to accept. I just want to run it past, I have some mentors and some family members that are in the industry. I just want to run it past them." The sticking point in this situation was he had some long-term incentive, that was vesting like within a year. It was a long time out. The problem is, whoever he was getting advice from was trying to tell him to negotiate and get some kind of sign-on bonus and get more money. And they wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it. That's not what they do. Not all companies are gonna do that. They weren't gonna do it. And he tried to hold out, he tried to hold out, he tried to hold out. And I actually think that part of me thinks that he was gonna say no, to think that once he said no, they were gonna turn around and kind of like, fight for him and give him some kind of like crazy money. And they called this bluff, and it didn't work out. Now here's the problem. The problem is the guy wanted the job in the worst way. So he called me the next day and he said, "I made a mistake. I should have never said no. I shouldn't have done that. So how do we fix this?" And at that point I was like, I don't know if we can. Like, you don't just tell a company no and then expect that they're going to be able to fix it, or I'm going to be able to fix it. So the only advice I gave him was just reach out to literally like the hiring manager and just say, hey, look, I just want to let you know I made a mistake and whatever. And so long story short, long story longer, I'm getting on with this. Uh, it didn't happen. The guy actually literally talked himself out of the job that he wanted, or he let someone else talk him out of the job that he wanted. He wanted the job. He got everything, he got way more than he asked for. But for whatever reason, he wanted to hold out and negotiate for something that was a non negotiable. It wasn't even something that could have been negotiable. And the reason it fell apart was because someone else was giving him advice. He didn't know any better and he took it. And I feel really bad because he's an awesome, awesome dude. I really like this guy. He's going to be fine. He's probably fine wherever he is. But if he decides that he wants to keep looking, he'll find another job. But he'll learn from the experience. The reason I'm doing this podcast is not just because of that story. It's because I feel like every week it's a different story of someone who's a job seeker that's shooting themselves in the foot because they're taking bad advice or they're not getting any good advice at all and they're trying to do things on their own and they think that they're taking the right approach. So I am going to go through some different, really important items that I want you guys to take note of so that you can be prepared the next time you have to negotiate an offer, or if you're in the middle of a job search and you're going to be, or you're in the process of negotiating right now. So here's number one, and I kind of put this in order, but it's kind of also in no specific order. Um, and I'm going to start with a true false question. Always negotiate an initial job offer. True or false? I know you guys hear this all the time. This is something that's very commonplace. Do you always negotiate the initial offer? Yes or no? I'm going to say false and no. The reason I'm saying that is because you don't always have to negotiate. Statistically, statistics show that those that negotiate initial offers are eventually given higher salaries. So conventional wisdom is going to tell you percentage wise, you should consider or try to negotiate on the initial offer, even if it's just to say, is there any room to negotiate the base salary or the whatever? Just very, very simple question. I don't think that's bad advice, unless here's why the answer is false and here's why it's a no. Because there are certain situations where companies will bring to you their best and final offer as the first offer. Not everybody comes in with an initial offer and expects to negotiate from there. Some people kind of think that that's the way it always happens. It doesn't always happen that way. How do you know when that is the case and when it's not the case? Well, you have to ask. You have to ask whether, if you're working with a recruiter like myself, definitely ask that recruiter that's representing you. When I get the offer, what do I expect? Is this a best and final? Do you recommend that I negotiate? They should be able to tell you that. Now, there may not be a third party recruiter like me that you're working with. So in that case, I would confide in whoever you have the closest relationship with within the company, whether it's a colleague, whether it's HR, whether it's the hiring manager, and just say, I want you to know I'm thrilled about this offer. I understand an offer is coming. I'm thrilled about this offer. And I'm just curious, how does your company normally present offers? Meaning, is it like a best and final situation? Do you feel like sometimes there's some room left in the offer? I just want to know so that I can be prepared for how I evaluate and read through in the offer. And sometimes they'll be totally upfront. Most times they'll probably just tell you. Sometimes they may not, and it really depends on who you're talking to and what your relationship is. The whole point of the matter is you should try to get those details. Now, let's just say you're not sure, but you feel like you need to negotiate. You feel like you need to ask. Again, the percentage, by the way, the percentage of those that are awarded higher salaries when negotiating an initial offer, it's significant. It's like 84%. That's why I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you to do it. I'm asking you to be careful when you do it. There's two things. Number one, see if you can find out if it's a best and final or not. And number two, when you ask, it's not just you asking, it's how you ask. So, like a lot of people play this the wrong way. What I'm telling you to do is really first and foremost, go in with an attitude of gratitude. Like be very, very gracious and thankful when you get an offer. I talk about this all the time. I talk about it in my book. You definitely want to make sure that the approach is tactful and it's gracious. When you ask, you simply like it has to be something along the lines of, um, I can't thank you enough. I'm so excited about this offer. Want it. I just really want it. I have to ask, you know, is there any room, on the base salary? Is there any room to negotiate this? Be really, really careful in number one, balking at an offer and coming off like you're not grateful, um, or asking as if you deserve it or have a right to it, because they may have just given you a best and final and they may not be able to do anything. You just have to be careful. So that's number one, and it's a really important way to start this process because a lot of people just make assumptions. They go in with the wrong approach and it upsets people. The second thing that's really important is see if you can get the range for the position. Try to find out what the company range is for the position. Understand that companies don't have an open checkbook. It's not an open thing. You can't just say a number and expect that they're going to give you that number. It just doesn't work that way. And the reason I mention it, guys, I have a lot of people that like that's the way they approach this, like as if, well, I'm just going to ask for this. I had it happen recently. I had a guy throw out a crazy number. He's like, well, you don't know until you ask. I'm like, no, dude. Like I can't walk that back. You gave them a number so far outside their range that now they don't think they can afford you and they don't want to move forward in the process. You're talking yourself. That's why the title of this episode is How to Botch. You're botching the whole process by taking the wrong approach. So guys, the way you find out a range in the process is you have to ask. And I don't think you should ask on the first interview. I'm not saying that you should do that. If you have a third-party recruiter that you're working with, a headhunter, you certainly can get that information, or hopefully you can get that information from that person. If you can't get the information from that person, or you don't have a recruiter like that, then you want to ask somebody typically on the HR side of the equation, talent acquisition, so that you could see if they can identify or at least share with you a range. The other thing is keep in mind that there are pay transparency laws right now that show compensation on job postings. So you may be able to actually see it without even asking. The whole point of the matter is see if you could try to find out what the range is so that you are aware in the search on how you're going to position yourself. Keep in mind when a company posts a range on a job description, it's really typically never the low and it's typically never the high. So I wouldn't say if they have a range, and let's just say for argument's sake, the range is like 250,000, just because it says that is really slim chance you're getting to that number. Um, Again, this is something that should eventually come up in the conversation during the interview process. I just wouldn't talk about it on the first interview. I would wait until you get a little bit further in the process, but you should definitely try to know this. The third thing, and this is really, really super important, and it could save a lot of time, solve a lot of problems for you, is you have to know your numbers. Make sure you know what are you currently earning? What's your current base salary? What was your bonus last year? What long-term incentives do you get, if any? If you do get long-term incentives, what is the vesting schedule? How much do you currently have vested? When is the next vest going to happen? You want to figure out, is there anything that you're quote unquote walking away from? So if you're going to take another position and leave your company, are you walking away from a certain amount of money? Guys, a lot of people don't know their numbers. I just had this happen 2 days ago, literally 2 days ago. We had somebody that was drastically off on their projections. Hey, good for them. They were making a lot more money than they thought, but it put literally put a stop in the entire interview process for that person, for that client. Now, here's the bad news. The bad news is time was already invested in that candidate. And so the candidate wasted time, the client wasted time. It could have all been avoided if that person had known their numbers ahead of time. It's really, really easy to do. There's pay stubs. You can go back and look at the history of it, guys, especially in this day and age. We're in this electronic era where everything is online. You can just pull all this stuff up, or you can go back to offer letters or whatever else to get the language that you need. This is mandatory when you're in the search process. Know your numbers. And earlier, the better, because you want to know whether or not this position that you're considering align with your numbers. So again, as I said before, you want to try to understand what the salary range and what the compensation range is for the company and for that position. And you want to know your numbers to make sure that they're aligned. And this is going to save a lot of aggravation. It's going to make you a lot more organized and come across as more organized. And it's going to make a more seamless process for everyone involved. Understand this. This is number 4. And I hope you guys are taking notes because this is really important stuff. When you're evaluating an offer, so an offer comes in and you're considering it, just understand it's never apples to apples. And what that means is if you are currently working and you're an MSL and you're making, I'm just going to throw numbers out. You're making a $200,000 base salary with a 20% bonus, a company car, and you may or may not get LTI. And then you're interviewing at another company and the offer comes in. The base salary, the bonus, the car, the long-term incentive, it may not line up perfectly. It may not be the perfect like the perfect situation where everything is higher on at the new company. There may be certain things that you're getting now that just may not be able to be replaced. But there's something else at the company, whether it's stability, whether it's the science, whether it's the culture, whether it's the salary, whether it's the type of car, whether it's the benefits, the PTO, the size of territory, there's so many different things. And because there are so many different things, it can never be apples to apples. One of the challenges and one of the problems and the things I see with job seekers is they want everything to line up perfectly. And it's just never the case. So here's the thing. Decide what is most important for you. What can you live with? What can you not live with? Hey, listen, I'm not telling you that you absolutely have to find a way to accept an offer that you ultimately don't want. Do the pros and cons and look at it and say, okay, I'm going to listen to Tom. Tom said it's never apples to apples. That being said, when I look at this, it's apples to oranges. Is the Are the oranges better than my apples or more enticing than my apples? Is it, do I want to be with the oranges or do I want to stay with the apples? Or do I want to find pears? Like, where do you ultimately see yourself? Where are you going to be comfortable? It's not always about money. It's not always about dollars and cents. There's so many other things. So make sure that you learn, not learn, but figure out what your priorities are, what you absolutely want to see happen in that next role, um, and give yourself, try not to make it so perfect. Like it's got to be this, it's going to be a give and take. It's not just going to be um, an absolute perfect next scenario. So keep that in mind. Number five, this is a big one. I alluded to this before in the first story that I told you guys. Mentors. Be careful who you listen to. Guys, I have to tell you, like, this has become a real problem because there are people out there that are claiming to be experts, coaches, mentors, and they don't always have the best advice. And again, I don't want to categorically tell you don't listen to anyone, but what I do want to tell you is be careful who that is. Make sure that you're listening to the right people. Make sure that they understand your situation, that they know what your priorities are, that they have your best interest in mind. Yeah, I'm just, I can't tell you how many times lately, within the last like 2 or 3 years, where there's a situation, you have a candidate, they interview, just like the first story that I told you, they interview, they're really excited. They want the job. And then all of a sudden, somebody gets in their ear. Well, you really should consider this. You really should ask about that. Do you realize that you're walking away from this? You don't have to do that. You could demand, and it's like you can't always demand things in a negotiation because someone told you that you should. They don't know the situation. There's like this internal equity piece that exists within every company. And the only people know about what's included in that internal equity piece, this meaning the stake that that employee has in the company, not just compensation wise, but everything else, where they sit in the company and where their value is and how they're valued, is the company itself. So now you deserve your value, right? I'm not telling you you shouldn't get your piece, but you can't let somebody else determine that when they don't know the whole story. Be careful who you listen to. Be sure that they have your best interest in heart. And then the other thing that's really, really important is to ask a lot of questions. If someone's telling you something and you're not sure about it, or if there's this piece of advice, double check it, triple check it before you go and make a mistake, especially if it's to negotiate and ask for a whole bunch more money or put someone out or put something off, or like you just want to be really careful. And I don't want to see you guys wind up like my buddy that made the mistake and listened to the wrong person. So be careful with quote unquote mentors. Number six is equally as important as all the rest of the stuff, and it's attitude. Attitude's everything, guys. I have seen people, and I have to be careful about the way they say this because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I'm not talking about anybody specific. I'm not sharing names, but I've seen situations where people turn into monsters. One of like my favorite expressions that I tell people, new people, when I'm training them, when they're recruiters and I'm training them, is that every candidate is your best friend until you present them with an offer. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a second. I need this and I need that and I need this. Not everybody, but it's common. It's common. It's like this people just they turn into a monster's a strong word, but sometimes they become self-righteous because they go into this negotiation mode, and the attitude that's being portrayed is what's harmful. Very often, when an offer is rescinded, it's because of the person's attitude. It's because of their approach. It's because they freaked someone out. The hiring manager, the HR director, they upset someone because of their attitude. I mentioned before how important it is to have an attitude of gratitude. You need to be gracious the entire time. You have to walk on eggshells. You have to be very delicate. You can't be forceful. You can't be arrogant. You also need to be responsive. Don't disappear. I had somebody recently who told me, and this is another thing that's really important. Responsiveness goes with the right attitude. I had someone tell me recently that they were given an offer deadline for a position and they were waiting on another offer. So they never got back to the company that gave them the offer deadline. They didn't ask for another day. They didn't say, "Hey, would it be okay if I had an extension?" They just never got back to that person or that company. I don't think that's just not the right way to do it. You really like again if you want to show someone that you have the professionalism that it takes to be successful, not just in an MSL role, in any role, you have to lead with professionalism, with executive presence, with the proper attitude, the proper gratitude. Like you have to exemplify someone that is capable of conducting successful business with someone. And you may think I'm overstating this, but people pick up on the energy that you put off when you're negotiating. And if it's negative energy and you come off as you're entitled, it's going to turn people off. If you come off with positive energy, like you have a genuine level of excitement and enthusiasm, and you're just wanting to see if you can get the best possible offer, and that's why you're negotiating, that's a different attitude altogether. But the point of the matter is, and guys, I want to stress this, companies can and often do rescind offers. They take them away. They say, "No, we changed our mind. Sorry, we're no longer interested. We're no longer moving forward in the process." There's nothing illegal about it. They can change their mind. They can absolutely change their mind. So I'm giving you all of this information and I'm sharing all of this advice because I don't want you, because it's never intentional. Guys, this is the stuff I'm talking about that people are doing. It's never intentional. They're not trying to shoot themselves in the foot, not trying to botch the offer process. They're just, this is what, like, they don't know any better. So, attitude, like, just be mindful of your approach is the most important thing. Number seven, there's only two more, so I'm almost done here. I don't want to take up too much time here. Number seven is to ask the right questions along the way. I alluded to this before. This is like really super important. You want to start the process by asking good questions. Questions about the company, questions about the culture, questions about the future. And you also, during the course of the interview, you want to find out about the package. What it is that they're going to be offering. What's the compensation range? What's the bonus potential? Ultimately, what does the benefits package look like? At some point in time, they're going to give you that information. It's okay to ask. I wouldn't ask all this stuff up front, like I said, but at some point in time, you're going to want to ask those questions. People say to me like, "Well, what questions should I ask?" And it's like, I'm going to throw that back at you. What's most important to you? Your questions have to be based on what is important to you. What are your priorities? Why are you leaving your current job and why do you want to go to that job? What are you looking for? Some people want to switch jobs strictly because of comp. And that's okay. But if that's your main priority, then you need to know the numbers. You need to know your numbers. You need to know their numbers to be able to determine whether or not it's going to even work out at the end. Otherwise, you're wasting everybody's time. If it's benefits, you may have a situation with a child or a family member that needs certain care. If that's front and center, then you better make sure that you're getting that benefits package up front so you could see whether or not they have coverage that you need. That happens a lot. And sometimes people wait until the very end. It's like, I can't take this job because they can't care for my son. It's like, well, you knew that your son needed special care. Why didn't you ask for the benefits booklet in the beginning or bring this to like, it's okay to ask these questions early, often, and throughout the process. Not compensation questions. You don't want to ask those early, like I said before, but just if it's like benefits, if it's culture, if it's future, there's other things that you can ask along the way, and you can ask early. It's just you don't want. It's very tacky to start talking about compensation unless they bring it up early in the process. Very, very important. Know what you want, know what your priorities are, what's important to you, and really construct the questions so that you can get the answers to those questions and make a determination along the way. Number 8, first impression. Understand that what the way you negotiate an offer is the first impression that you're going to be giving your new employer. And you might be like, well, Tom, it's not really a first impression because if I'm getting an offer, I would have already interviewed. So they already have a first impression. Yes and no. Like, yeah, that's a first impression, but this is the impression that they're going to be given when you enter into the company. This is how you're starting the first impression of your career at that company because you're going to be dealing with a lot of other people, like the people in compensation and HR and talent acquisition and the HR business partner. And depending on the size of the company, it'll depend on who those people are. But the whole point of the matter is this is an impression. Are you really going to blow it and give the wrong impression to your new employer, your new boss over $5,000? Think about that before you push the envelope, because that's a lot of times you push it. I see people push the envelope for something that's not even worth pushing the envelope for at the end of the day. It's not worth it. It's not worth starting off on the wrong foot or having the hiring manager second guess you or having the hiring manager say, well, I'm still going to hire that person, but I'm going to put an asterisk. I'm still going to hire that person, but I'm going to keep an eye on it because I don't like the way that negotiation went down. One of the reasons I see offers get rescinded is because the negotiation was handled so poorly that they'll say to me, Tom, we saw a side of this person that made us uncomfortable in moving forward. We don't want them on our team. We are no longer interested in having that person join us because of the way they handled the negotiation. That's why offers are rescinded. That's why I'm having this conversation with you. That's why I'm sharing these details with you because I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to make a mistake by showing a side of yourself that you just shouldn't. And look, we all want, it's like, I always equate this to buying a house. If you're buying a house, you never want to pay the highest price. You want to get it. You want to know that you negotiated a good deal. It's the same thing when you're selling a house. You want to get the best number that you possibly can. But at the same time, you don't want to lose out on the house if you love it. If you absolutely love it, you don't want to lose out on that house over $5,000. or you don't want to not be able to sell that house and have it sit for longer over $5,000. So just realize that you have to take a step back and decide, do I really want this? Is it aligned with my goals, what I value most, what's important to me, what I want to see happen in the future, and what the long term looks like? That's the other thing is, am I just going to say yes to something because it's a quick short term fix? Or is this a place where I can see myself for a long time? And if it's a place that you can see yourself for a long time, it's even more reason for you not to screw it up and not to chance it and risk it. So I'm going to leave you with, and guys, I hope I didn't come across as I don't want to come across the wrong way. Be like, wow, Tom was he was really, really sticking it to us. No, I look, I'm looking out for you guys. I've seen way too many mistakes happen. I've seen way too many people overplay their hand. You know what happens in cards when you overplay your hand? You lose. I don't want you guys to lose, especially when you really ultimately want the job. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you were listening to this and you were driving, I would go back and just take notes or listen to this again another time when you're negotiating or when you're at the end of a job offer or when you're in the middle of a job offer process. Obviously, it would make sense because a lot of this has to happen during the process. And then be better prepared. This, guys, is advice that like I would give this to my son. I'd give it to my daughter. I'd give it to like, and I love all of you guys. I want all of you guys to win. I want you to succeed. And I'm giving you this advice because I don't want to see you upset about the fact that you said something that you shouldn't have said or you did something you shouldn't have done. So I hope this was helpful. If you guys got a lot out of it, as always, please share it with others. I appreciate all of your support and hope this was helpful. I'll see you on the next one.